Today is August 24th, 2016, and we are interviewing Lance Bryant in Taylorville, Illinois. Lance is 36 years old, having been born on February 25th of 1980. My name is Sue Burkholder, and I will be the interviewer. Lance, would you please state for the recording in what war and branch of service that you served?
I was in the Army right before the Iraq War broke out.
Okay. All right. So to begin, can you tell us where you were born and a little bit about your parents and siblings?
Okay, I was born in Mattoon, Illinois in 1980. My mother is Marcia Bryant. My father, who is deceased, his name is Dennis Bryant. I have one sister, her name is Jennifer Reedy. She's from Shelbyville. My father passed away when I was 10, so I grew up a single parent, my mother, and she took really good care of us.
So what did you do early on? Were you, when you were thinking about joining the military, were you working or going to school, or how did that come about?
I dropped out of high school because I got my girlfriend pregnant. We had a daughter. Her name is Paige. Things didn't work out between me and my girlfriend, so I took full custody of my daughter, and I had to drop out of school early so I could take care of her. It was just too much going to school and taking care of her at the same time. So I dropped out of school. I went to the Adult Education Center and I got my GED. And my mom worked in nursing homes as a social services director, so she got me jobs in the nursing homes. I started out in the dining room serving coffee, of all things. And I worked my way up to maintenance, and I did that for a while. I was just having a hard time being a single father at 17 years old and keeping up, so I did that for 2 years, and at 19 things just weren't working out. I was going from job to job. I was having a hard time getting myself adjusted and lined out. So my mom sat down with me one night. She actually told me about the Army, if I ever thought about it. So I thought it was a good deal, so I signed up about a month after that conversation with my mother.
Okay, all right. So what was it like when you signed up for the Army and you're leaving home? How was that, and then what was it like when you arrived at basic training?
It was scary. I'd never been away from my mother. I'm a mama's boy, always have been. Plus, I'm leaving a little girl behind. I think she was 2 or 3 at the time. And I didn't want to leave her because all she knew was me and my mom, and I'm sure she's going to have a hard time without her dad, so I worried about that. Like I said, I'd never been away from home before. I was scared. I didn't know what to look forward to, and of all things, I joined the infantry, so that's like one of the hardest jobs in the Army. But I did that because my grandfather was in the infantry. That made me second generation. He served in Korea. But I was pretty apprehensive about the whole deal. But if I go back and do it again, I'd do it all over again. It worked out pretty good.
Okay. And during basic, it was how was it on you? Difficult? And how were the instructors? What did you think of them?
Oh, the instructors, scary. They were very scary. It was probably the hardest thing I've done in my life, and I've had some pretty rough times. And the 4 months that I was down in Fort Benning doing my basic training it beat me up, but it built me back up at the same time. I mean, there were times where I didn't think I was going to keep going on. It was the hardest thing I've done in my life, physically and mentally. It's hard being away from home, going through something that rough. But like I said, I'd do it all over again if I could. It was pretty enjoyable.
Did you make friendships during basic
Oh
training?
Yeah, life lasting. Some good men. I met some good people, and we went through some tough times together. It brings people closer together.
Mm-hmm. So during basic, do you have any memories of stories that are like, things you might have done, or funny stories, or those type of things that were outside of your training?
Well, I remember, we have battle buddies. When you go to basic training, you get assigned to a battle buddy. He's the guy that sleeps either above you or below you in your bunk. His name was Burns. He's just a little skinny guy. I was a little skinny guy at the time. But we were at the gun range one time, and it was the coldest night I think I've ever had in my life. And we thought they were going to march us back to the barracks so we could sleep inside, but we had to requalify the next day. So they just took us across the street, and being in the infantry, we just slept on the ground. It's got to be 20 degrees outside. Me and Burns are back to back, and finally get a little bit of sleep. And we got to take turns sleeping because, one guy's got to be up, one guy's got to be down. But that night was probably the coldest night I've ever spent in my life. I woke up with frost on my lip and my eyebrows, and it was really cold. And me and Burns were spooning, back to back, and the things you do when you have to do them.
Right.
I'll always remember that night.
Okay. So, the things that you learned in basic training, did you feel that they prepared you for what was to come adequately?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I still carry all the training today. It never goes away. It's made me a better man. Both, I'm getting older, so I'm not so much physical anymore, but mentally strong. It's made me a very mentally strong person. I feel like I can do anything still to this day. It's been 15 years.
So after basic training, what advanced training did you receive?
They, maybe a week before graduation, which I was just happy to get out of there at that time, but a week before graduation, I guess my name come up in a lottery for anti-armor warfare. It's called a Javelin. It's a computer-guided rocket missile, I guess. But it's extra 3 weeks of training. They come up to me and said that I have to stay an extra 3 weeks. I wasn't very happy about it at the time, but they put us in like little trailers that looked like just like a shop foreman's trailer, like on a construction site. They put us in there, and we went to the airborne school. That's where we trained for 3 weeks, and it was pretty intense training, but I enjoyed it, and I'm glad I got picked to do it because it made me I guess a commodity, and the squads wanted me to, because anti-armor, anti-tank, I could take out a problem if the artillery wasn't around.
So okay, after your advanced training then, where did you go from there?
I went home for 10 days on a furlough, and I got married. Probably too soon. My family says it was too soon, but I got married. Then I was stationed in Fort Hood, Texas. I went down there, and I got things. It took me about a month, but I got things together for my wife, so I could have my family down there. And I bought a car, which they say I paid too much interest. My sergeants weren't very happy about it, but I bought a car when I was down there, and I flew her and my stepson down first, and we got on post. But I was stationed in Fort Hood, Texas with the 2nd Battalion, 5th Cavalry, the 1st Cavalry Division. That's where I went.
All right, and what were your job duties there?
Train. Most of the time it was bore sighting weapons, tearing down weapons, cleaning weapons, field training, artillery, or not artillery, but infantry movements. We did a lot of night training. It's just, we train to fight is what we do. That's what the infantry does. We just did a lot of training on warfare techniques and tactics.
And how, while you were there, you had your family. Did you meet other families, and were you able to make friends with other couples or families and have some recreation time with them?
Yes, we moved into a city called Coppers Cove, Texas. And we moved in an apartment complex there, and there's a couple downstairs. They had a little girl, and our little girl started playing with their little girl, and we met. And we did a lot of recreation with them. There's a place called Blora. It's a Belton Lake outdoor recreation area. We used to go there on the weekends when I was home, because I wasn't home very often. I was always training out in the field for months at a time. But we'd go there, we'd rent boats, we'd go to the beach, and we'd let the kids swim. And there's a big cliff you could jump off of. We enjoyed it as much as we could.
Yeah. Are any of those friendships, have they lasted past that time period in your life?
I haven't been able to contact him. His name was Richard. He was a tanker, but he was a really good friend of mine. I enjoy spending time with him and his family.
So what about, well, you lived at home then. Let me back up just back. I forgot to ask you in basic training about like the food and recreation during that time.
Okay.
What was that like?
The food, well, we didn't get much time to eat it. We just in and out and grab stuff on the way, stuff your pockets full, and eat it on the way to wherever you're going. But it was good. A lot of scrambled eggs, and bacon. I remember a lot of bagels in my pockets. I'd reach in and grab a piece of a bagel, and the drill sergeants weren't looking. Give me a couple bites. But as far as recreation on the weekends, for us, I attended church on Sundays. I always enjoyed that, 'cause I got to walk away from the barracks, and it was in Fort Benning, Georgia, and it's real scenic. You know, I'm an outdoorsy type of guy, and I like to see the woods. And it was pretty much right in the middle of the woods, so I enjoyed the walk to church. I enjoyed the service, and I enjoyed the walk back. And at the PX, which I wasn't supposed to do, but at the PX I'd sneak off a little bit and talk to other people that are in basic training and see how they're doing. But other than that, recreation was shining our boots and cleaning our weapons and just hanging out with your buddies.
All right, so you're, let's see. Okay, so back to Texas. Sorry,
Back to Texas.
I had forgot about those questions. When you were there, after, is that where you spent the rest of your career?
Yes, ma'am.
At Texas? The whole time was at Texas?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Your contact with like your family and friends during that time, were you able to keep in pretty constant contact with them, or?
Yes.
I'm sure. I see. If you would have had electronic and
Yes, ma'am.
other types of. And how did you feel, or how did that help you being able to contact family and talk with them?
I really missed my family when I was down there, because I'm a family person. I love having my family around me. My preference, have my family around me more than anybody. But I called my mom a lot, checked in on her, made sure I sent her some money from time to time if she needed it. My sister, I called her, which I really miss my sister. Me and my sister are really close. We have been our whole lives. We've been through a lot together. But I did miss my family, but I had my wife and my kids there with me, so it wasn't all that bad. I remember one time, I was getting ready for PT in the morning, and in Texas they have these geckos that stick to the walls. And they tell you when you're in Texas, so my wife wouldn't let me put my PT shoes in the house because they stunk, because I run in them, they sweat and everything. And I went out, and it was like 4 o'clock in the morning to put my shoes on. And I put my foot in my shoe and something moved, and I thought it was a scorpion. So I threw my shoe, screamed, woke everybody up. It was one of them geckos in my shoes. So we had good times down there. It was fun.
What about during your service? What type of medals did you receive?
I got the National Defense Service ribbon, and I got the Army Service Medal. Those were the only two
And what are those for?
That's just when you sign up. Those are the two you get.
Okay.
Just right off the bat for your service and your branch of military. And I got all my qualifications too. I think I was a sharpshooter. I got my grenade. I got the rocket from extra things I've done. I was working on my EIB, but I wasn't quite there yet. That's where you have to run so fast, so far, so fast. You have to do so many push-ups. But I didn't quite get there.
So, besides the training while you were there, I know you talked about taking care of weapons and that. Were there any other jobs or assignments that you had?
Oh yeah, I used to. I check in people at the front gates of Fort Hood, which kind of aggravated me because it was kind of a dangerous job. It was a dangerous time. Fort Hood is the home of the infantry. If it's going to be hit by terrorists, or that would be the place to hit to take us out. One of the places. So they'd send me up there. I go to roll call in the morning, and that's when you get your jobs and everything. Your squad leader gives you your jobs, tells you where you're going, and they tell me I was going to the front gate or this gate or that gate to check people in. They'd give me an empty M16. I'd have a magazine, but it would be empty. And the aggravating part of that was, you think one of these guys are going to come with an empty weapon. It scared me. It's a dangerous job. I thought it was. But the MPs were there, but still, it was a pretty dangerous job for me.
So I can imagine checking many people in, because
Oh, yeah.
I've actually gone when I visited my nephew. Were there any interesting occurrences while you were there?
Uh, Most of the time, just soldiers coming in smelling like alcohol. I'd have to make sure they're all right to work. But I seen an MP pull a guy over on foot one time. He chased him down the road and pulled him over for something or other. I think his tag was expired or something like that. But nothing really interesting happened. I was blessed that nothing really interesting. I've seen people have bad days, get angry, and they're grouchy with you. You're just trying to do your job, just that type of thing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So when it was coming toward the end of your service, what were you doing, and how did that come about?
Toward the end of my service, I was working to be a Bradley driver, which is, I think it's A4 Bradley. I was working to be it's our ride. If we have a ride, that's what the infantry ride in, because I was mechanized infantry. I was trying to be a driver for one of those, and I spent, toward the end of my service at Fort Hood, I was in the motor pool a lot. I enjoyed the motor pool because that's where all the big guns are, and I just enjoyed being around those things. It was pretty neat. I got to hang out with the mechanics. I learned a lot from them, because we have a lot of downtime in the infantry. You know, we're just, when we're on post, we really just guard this or guard that or clean this or work on that. But I enjoy being in the motor pool. And sometimes I'd go to the airstrip. That's where the Apaches are. I got pictures with the Apaches, and that was really enjoyable. I enjoyed that. It was pretty cool to be that close to that type of machinery.
So when you hung out with the mechanics, were you just kind of chatting, or kind of trying to learn a little bit as you're?
I was trying to learn, but I wasn't allowed to have hands-on because regulations and everything. But they were working on Humvees, they were working on the deuce and a halves, and that interests me. You know, sometimes I wish I'd have done that in a way, so I'd have a skill. But I just tried to stick my nose in there and watch them and learn as much as I could. So when I did get home, if I decided to re-up, I could have a leg up on the job already. So I enjoyed hanging out with the mechanics.
And at the motor pool, you talked about, you named off a couple of things, but what was it? Just your fascination with the Army vehicles, yeah? And just talk a little bit more about that, the kind of things that you liked while you were in the motor pool, the vehicles, and what their purpose was.
Well, it started when we did get a ride, which we hardly ever got a ride. We walked everywhere, but when we did get a ride, I was watching the Humvees in front of me, and the drivers, we ain't supposed to, but they take them off road a little bit every now and then. It just amazed me how them Humvees are designed, where all four wheels, unless you jump it off of the ground or ramp or whatever, they're designed to keep all four wheels on the ground at all times. They just roll over anything. I've always liked four-wheel drives, and the Humvees, I was very interested in them and how they worked. And we'd be sitting out in the field, and you just hear this rumbling coming. It'd be the Abrams. I mean, you hear the clink, 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 and then, the ground would just rumble, and they go flying by 40, 45 mile an hour. It's just amazing to me just how big they were and how fast they could move. And even the deuce and a halves with the buffaloes on the back, the water buffaloes, we look for them for hot meals. We didn't get hot meals in the field very much, so every time I see that deuce and a half, I get excited. It's a big truck, you know, you hear them coming. But mostly just the heavy machines and just the firepower they had behind them, the Abrams and the Bradley. I remember standing next to the Bradleys in the field when we'd have our movements with the Bradleys. They'd have us unload, set up a perimeter behind them, and they'd start shelling rounds, 25 millimeter, and they just come out, thump, 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 thump. You can just feel it. It is amazing. Just the power behind them is what it was. I enjoyed being around them.
Okay. All right. How was it? You were there in Texas, and you had your family with you. How did your family adapt? And
see, that's where I started having issues. My wife didn't like it. She was away from home. She felt like we weren't together very long. We probably should have waited longer to get married. We weren't together very long, and I feel like we kind of rushed into it. So she didn't enjoy it down there. My kids did, because they liked the schools. They went to Army schools. But my wife was at home all the time. She was always hounding me, telling me she wanted to go home. It was rough on her.
Sure. How did the kids like the schools?
They loved them. I was out in the field one time. They loved the school, so all of them did. I was out in the field one time. It's kind of a funny story. And one of my sergeants came and got me. I was dug in, just doing my job, cleaning out my hole or whatever. And I was dug in and said, "Mr. Bryant or Private Bryant, we need to take you back to the rear. You have an incident at home you need to get taken care of." I was like, "Well, can you tell me what it is?" He goes, "Well, they didn't specify it. We just need to get you back on post as quick as possible." So I was freaking out. I was thinking, "Oh man, something happened to one of my kids." So I go to school, and mind you, I've been in the field for like 3 weeks at this time. I'm dirty, I stink. I'm sure I'm just the worst looking person they've seen in a while. I walk in there, and teacher comes running up. She's like, "It's your daughter." I was like, "Well, what'd she do?" The other kids on the playground had dared her to stick a rock in her ear. And she stuck a rock all the way down in her ear, and I had to take her to the hospital and have it removed. So I asked her on the way there, I was like, "Why'd you do that?" "Well, they told me I wouldn't do it. I wasn't brave enough." So I had to show them I was, and she stuck a rock down her ear, and we had to go get it removed. And this whole time, I'm filthy. I mean, my BDUs are gray when they're supposed to be green. I'm sure I wasn't pleasant to be around. I felt really out of place around, and everybody else is clean, and I'm filthy. I'm sleeping in the ground for a couple of weeks now at that time.
So did your daughter learn a lesson from that?
Yes, we still have the rock. I put it
Really?
in a little pill bottle kept before.
Oh, that's cool. So let's see. So how when your time was winding down, and how did that come about?
It was more or less just pressure from my wife to go home, so I just got out and I went home, and that's when things started going downhill. If I should have stayed in, I should have just listened, sent her home, but you can't live on the shoulda, woulda, couldas.
That's right. Well, okay, so when you went home, was it difficult changing your mindset from military back to civilian?
Yes, it was. It was. I remember when I graduated basic training, they gave me some time with my family. My family is at a hotel on post in Fort Benning. It's in Georgia. But I was sitting around them, and I felt really awkward. I never felt that way around my family before, of all people. And my mom kind of caught on to that. She asked me what was wrong. I was like, "Mom, I don't think I'm like you guys anymore. I feel totally separate from the way you guys are." And it was the same way going home. I missed it. I wanted to go back. I really did. I still do to this day. I'd go right now if they let me. But it was hard adjusting, because I had just the realities of being a civilian again. It was just odd.
Yeah.
It was kind of hard.
Okay. So did when you came back then, did you start a different career, or what did you do?
It was rough when I got home. I didn't have any plans. I just came home, and we ended up staying with my father-in-law in his house. We had all live in one bedroom, and he was a roofer, so I roofed with him for quite a while. And things took a turn for the worse for a little bit. I started drinking a little bit, but it was rough when I got home. It didn't turn out real good.
Were you able, before you left the service, did you do any traveling, much traveling with your unit, or was it mostly staying on base?
The only traveling I did was just around Fort Hood. Okay. We were set to go to NTC training in California. That's 3 months, but I never really went anywhere with them. Okay. I missed out on all that.
Okay. All right. So you do have some friends from basic that you do stay in contact with? I've tried. You've tried, okay.
One guy named Bannister, Ryan Bannister, he really helped me through. He was bigger than me and stronger than me, and he'd pick me up literally and keep dragging me on just so I'd make it through. But
did you join any veterans organizations when you got out?
Not right offhand. My sister worked at the American Legion in Shelbyville. I'd hang out there. I wasn't a member, but I just hang. I don't think I ever told them I was a veteran. I did some work. I cooked for them and I did the dishes. I like being around fellow veterans, regardless of the age. Just fellow veterans. I enjoyed it.
Was it the camaraderie or?
Yes.
I'm sure they had stories to tell.
Yes, it's kind of hard to explain, but once you're a veteran or in the military, being around other veterans or military members, it just makes you feel really comfortable. It is the camaraderie of it all, because it's kind of like we understand each other, combat or not, no combat. I'm not trying to be biased, but especially in the infantry, we really understand each other.
Sure.
Because my granddad was in Korea, he got shot. Well, he got shrapnel in his rear end, and he's got a Purple Heart and a couple other medals. I consider him to be a real soldier. I'm just, I didn't give him a chance. That's how I feel.
Okay. Did you find encouragement from the other veterans there, when you were with the was it VFW?
American
Legion. Sorry. When you were serving at the American Legion, did you, I'm sure there was support, but did you just find, or how was it for you? I should ask.
I felt like I was doing my part again. I was helping because they're older gentlemen, and I was doing their dishes, and I served their food, and I just sit and talk with them. I just enjoyed being around them. I felt like I was giving back to them because most of them were combat veterans, and I've always looked up to combat veterans, because of my grandfather and just the service that they provide. It takes a certain man to put yourself out there like that. And I feel like if I would have stayed, I would have been able to give my part.
So the gentleman that you met there, or were there any women in that post? Okay. Were there any that stuck out to you that you just maybe either bonded with or just were just drawn to them more than others? And what was their...
the guy that ran the place, his name was Beaver. I don't know what his real name is, but everybody calls him Beaver. But he was a really good man. He helped me out, and he's just the type of man. He's got his arms out, and he's just ready to help anybody. He's just a really good man, and he's just the type of guy where you want to help him too. So I really looked up to him. He's a really good man. He took really good care of my sister too. She tended bar for him, waited on tables and stuff. He's just a good man.
Did you find that with a lot of them, or were did they have that attitude?
Well, there was a lot of higher ups in the town that went to the American Legion. Like, we had judges go in there, police officers. So I kind of stayed away from the judges and the police officers. But there were other people that come in and I talked to, and I just small talk with them and enjoy being around them. Just ask them how their life's going and everything. I enjoy it.
All right. What are some of the life lessons that you learned from your military service?
Life lessons for military service is no matter how hard it gets, you can find a way through. Don't ever be ashamed to ask for help to get you through. And just from my infantry training, just put your nose down and keep pushing on no matter what's in front of you. And patriotism is something that every American should have. So I'm a very patriotic person. So your chance in the military, I think everybody should serve in the military, this country.
Right. How has your military service impacted your feelings just about war and the military in general?
I got kind of a harsh outlook on what's going on now. It angers me the way these terrorists attack people, but I think they're cowards. It worries me about just where we are as a country, how a family could be sitting outside of a diner and just doing their normal everyday thing, and someone just come up and blow themselves up or shoot them up. It angers me because I feel like I still feel like a protector, and I feel like I'm not doing my part to protect those families, because that could have been my mother, that could have been my daughter, that could have been his daughter, his mother. It's just I know our guys are chomping at the bit to do something. It's just we don't know who we need to be fighting. That's the problem, because they're a bunch of cowards. That's kind of where I'm at on war right now in this time.
Right. What would be the most positive thing that you took away from your experience in the service?
It made me a better man. It gave me a different outlook on life. It taught me to never take anything for granted. It brought me closer to my family. It showed me just how important family is in your life. And I'm just a very proud person to have served in the military. I'm proud of my service. It's something that can't ever be taken from me. So.
All right. Is there any message that you would like to leave for future generations who might hear or see your interview?
If you intend to serve your country, no matter what job it is, do it with pride. Make sure it's done properly. And thank you for your service. I think as Americans, we should all give some type of service to our country. But just whatever job you do in the military, whether it's Army, Navy, Marines, just do it proudly. And we're all proud of you for serving.
Well, Lance, I want to thank you very much for your time today, and thank you for your service to our country.
Yes, ma'am.